Moses walked her shores, as did King David, Cleopatra, Jesus, and later on the followers of the Prophet Muhammad. The Dead Sea. Today, this body of water is gravely ill. It seems that the Dead Sea is dying. The water is drying up and the shoreline is cracked and crumbling. The demise of the Dead Sea is but a mere reflection of the tumult in the Middle East. The struggle over water resources and water rights speaks volumes about the challenges that this region faces.
The problem of the sinkhole is the drop in the level of the Dead Sea, which is a consequence of human interference in the water balance of the Dead Sea. Unlike the debate about global warming, here in the Dead Sea we are 100% sure that the problem of the Dead Sea is man-induced.
صار بالضبط هذه مفاجأة يعني خلال 4 دقائق 3 دقائق بتكون الأرض نازلة مرة واحدة هيك من تحت والبحر كله بينشف تحت بصير فيها يعني بس شفت عندي هنا في كثير في المنطقة هذه غير هذا فيها شفت الجور المنطقة دي فيها جور نفس المنطقة هذه من عند الله يعني
ماشيين فيها وخايفين
ماشيين من
يعني احنا ماشيين فيها الساعة وخايفين وحتى الغرفة قاعدين فيها برضه
وين نروح لها هان وين نروح لها
وان احنا لو خفنا منها مش هنشتغل بقى عشان ناكل عيش.
من هون أنا بعبي مي من هون بعبي مي مشان أشرب أنا وأولادي عندي 8 أولاد بشرب من هون يعني بسمع حس المي نازل من البير هذا البير للاحتلال الإسرائيلي بسمع المي نازل من هون ومن عندي المواسير ماركة طلبنا منهم مي ما قبلوش يعطونا وبدنا نشرب مي غصب عنهم مش بخاطرهم وهي حياتنا زي ما انتم شايفين بدي انزل اعبي مي وافرجيك كيف بعبي مي ممنوع واحد يقرب على المي بدنا نسرق بدنا نشرب منهم كله من الاحتلال الاسرائيلي هذا طلع الشيك اللي حاطينه طلع الكهرباء اللي حاطينها غصب عنهم شربنا غصب عنهم نسقي اولادنا بدنا نعيش بدناش مشاكل بدنا نعيش احنا بس هاي حياتنا.
Water is scarce here. Humankind, the rivers, and the Dead Sea are all victims of this water shortage. The Dead Sea, previously fed by the Jordan River, is drying up day by day. The Jordan River, once a rushing torrent, has been reduced to a mere trickle. And in 30 years, the Dead Sea could be reduced to a pond. How can the Dead Sea be restored? What can be done with this water? And who's it for? Can we produce new water? These big questions are dividing the nations in the region: Israelis, Palestinians, and Jordanians, as well as the Syrians and the Lebanese. Water, a source of life, is also a source of conflict in the Middle East.
So the other side is Israel, and here we are in Jordan, and the Dead Sea is the border between these two countries. And this Dead Sea, you see how beautiful is it? It is a natural beauty, and it is the world heritage. It's not a sea basically, it's a lake, and it is the most saline sea in the world. Its salinity at 10 times the ocean salinity. That's why we call it Dead Sea, because there is no life in it. Either plants, fish, whatever, no life in it. But this is where the names come. And because of the declining of the amount of water that is inflow in the Dead Sea, according to the scientists, they're expecting in 50 years, if we don't do anything, it will be dry up.
The Dead Sea is shrinking. In the last 50 years, a third of the sea's surface has disappeared. 20 years from now, 2/3 will have vanished. On the northern shore of the Dead Sea, tourists enjoy beach activities at this kibbutz. Here, they can actually see how the Dead Sea continues to disappear.
We are at the Engedi Spa. It's a health spa where people come to relax, to find health, to find healing for their ailments, and so on. When the spa was first built in the early 80s, water line started to decline. It went back all the time, and within a couple of years after opening, they had to start operating a train, which is taking people now down here to the Dead Sea. יופי. אתה יודע שהים יורד כל הזמן.
כן.
אתה יודע גם למה?
אני לא יודע.
א', אנחנו והירדנים וכולם לוקחים את כל המים. הירדן והכל כבר לא נכנס. וב', המפעלים שלנו ושל הירדנים, אנחנו מאדים את המים. הכל מתאדה. Do you have any idea what's happening to the Dead Sea?
I don't know, cataclysm, something, maybe something with God. I don't know exactly.
בערך כל שנה אנחנו זזים איזה 100 מטר. הנה, לפני חודש וחצי המים היו ממש עד הקצה פה של הכיסאות. חודש וחצי, כל זה נסוג. חודש וחצי. הנה. עד לפה, אפשר לראות אפילו את הסימן של הגלים שהיו פה, עד לפה. חודש וחצי.
לא יאמן, מה יהיה בסוף הקיץ? We have to take the road out to the sea almost every year. There are sinkholes opening up which make it unsecure and unsafe to build new things. Today you can't develop anything around the Dead Sea. We had to close down a camping site and we had to close down lots and lots of things which are millions of dollars of loss for only one little community like Kibbutz En Gedi.
You see here an example of a construction that collapsed into a sinkhole.
The shoreline of the Dead Sea is composed essentially of salt and sand. As the salt water is receding, fresh groundwater is dissolving the layers of salt, causing the banks to crumble.
Well, 2 weeks ago, this sinkhole was not here. The area is not balanced yet, and the sinkhole's appearance is still accelerating in time. So we don't know when the phenomenon will slow down. Meanwhile, there are more and more sinkholes all the time.
In this mountainous region of the Golan Heights, it is hard to believe that we are so close to the Dead Sea. The source of the Jordan River starts here, at Mount Hermon, on the border of Syria and Lebanon. 30 kilometers downstream, the river intersects with the largest reservoir of fresh water in the region, Lake Tiberias, also known as the Sea of Galilee. This is where Jesus is said to have walked on water. It is from this vast body of water that the Jordan River was able to feed the Dead Sea for thousands of years. Between the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea, the Jordan River once ran for over 150 kilometers. Today, the Jordan is dry after only 2 kilometers.
So we've arrived here at the end of the most famous river on earth. This is the last stretch of clean waters down the River Jordan. And then from here, it's a shocking sight. We've come to the new 21st century headwaters of the Jordan River. And here we see raw sewage, the raw sewage of some 15,000 residents on the Israeli side around the Sea of Galilee, dumped untreated. These have become what flow all the way down to the Dead Sea, along the sites that so much of history has come to value. This is the Jordan River, a river holy to half of humanity, where Moses looks on to the Promised Land from Mount Nebo, where the Israelites cross and the river is parted to allow the Israelites to cross to the Promised Land, where Christ is baptized by John the Baptist, where 4 of the companions to the Prophet Muhammad are buried. So it's a holy river to all 3 Abrahamic faiths. Yet we, Jews, Muslims, Christians, Israelis, Palestinians, Jordanians, have really demised this river.
What a mighty God we serve. The angels bow before him, heaven and earth adore him. What a mighty God we serve.
We don't know this to be the site where the Lord was baptized, but we know this to be the Jordan in which he was baptized.
Praise the Lord.
It's a disappointing sight because the water is not flowing. We know that the water has residue of pollution, of sewerage, of agriculture runoff, of fish pond waste, that there's something very unholy about the river here on the Jordan.
In Middle East, it suffers from water scarcity. Jordan is the worst case, and we can say Jordan, it is the poorest country in its water resources. Before 1948, which is the first war in Palestine, the per capita per year, the availability of water per capita per year in Jordan was 3,400 cubic meter. You see this number, 3,400. Now how much is it? It is 145. The demand exceeds the supply by 200%. When our resources we have, let's talk about groundwater, we have 12 aquifers. 10 of the 12 aquifers are overpumped. This means you pump more than the safe yield. In a very few years, if you keep on doing this, you will end up with no water.
Here's the paradox. Despite the situation, Jordan has invested in a huge agricultural industry, which consumes a lot of water.
الأردن بيستهلك حوالي 70% من المياه لإنتاج المزروعات. كفاءة الإنتاج بتدلنا على إنه 70% من المياه تستخدم لإنتاج ما حوالي 3.5 إلى 4% من الإنتاج الوطني المحلي بالأردن. يصدر الأردن المياه للخارج عن طريق تصدير المنتجات الزراعية. تعتبر هذه يعني خسارة كبيرة في المياه. نحن بحاجة إلى تحديد كمية الصادرات الزراعية إلى حد متدني بحيث إنه نحافظ على كميات المياه الموجودة في الأردن.
إذا بتلاحظ في على السطوح لكل العمارات بتلاحظ هاي تنكات المياه. هاي بيستخدموها المواطنين لتخزين المياه لأنه المي بتجيهم مرة في الأسبوع، حتى يقدروا يكفوا بقية الأسبوع مضطرين يكون عندهم هاي الخزانات السطحية حتى يخزنوا المي ليستخدموها بعدين. كمان إذا بتلاحظ في عنا بعمان بالذات عم بلشوا جديد يعملوا الأبراج. هاي الأبراج حتى نقدر نخدمها بالصرف الصحي عن طريق الكودات. دخلنا بالكودات إنه إجباري بكل واحد بده يعمل برج يكون محطة تنقية صغيرة. هاي الوسيلة بيقدروا بتلم المياه الصرف الصحي ويعاد تنقيتها واستخدامها مرة ومرتين. تستخدم بالفلاشين، كمان تستخدم بري الحدائق اللي عندهم. يعني المتر المكعب من المي بهاي الطريقة تستخدم مرتين وثلاثة. وهاي طريقتنا في الأردن كيف المواطنين وبمساعدة الحكومة.
يعني عدم المؤاخذة لما تقول أنت 20 دينار تنكر مية كثير، لازم يكون أقل من هيك. بس الناس مضطرة من جبرة، اللي ما عنده مي بده يشرب بده يطعم ولاده بده يشتري، لو ب 25 و 30 بده يشتري مجبور.
In Jordan, which is overwhelmed by ongoing political tensions, water has become an even more pressing issue. The population keeps growing. The war between Jews and Arabs, the Palestinian exodus, civil war in Lebanon, Iraq, Libya, and Syria have all caused refugees to flock to Jordan. By 2025, Jordan will have exhausted all of its reserves of groundwater. If nothing is done, Jordan will have no choice but to depend exclusively on rainwater. There's another population who shares the shores of the Dead Sea, the Palestinians. Living in an area where they are not independent, access to water is not a given.
Now, the mountain here, the checkpoint that we are coming to is where Area C started. So we cannot cross the checkpoint here unless we show a certain permit.
In the agreement between Israel and Palestine, Zone C refers to land which is considered Palestinian, but completely under the control of the Israeli army.
They don't like to see a camera. Okay. Shalom. This is the apartheid system. Just these bypasses cannot be taken unless just for either privileged or the settlers. No, we cannot go to the Jordan River. We don't have access to since '67. We don't use any drop of that water. And our state is based on agricultural. If you take the water resources, what you left for the Palestinian, even if you left some lands.
Since the creation of the State of Israel in 1948, the struggle for land as well as access to drinking water have always been at the root of conflict between neighbors. In 1967, during the Six-Day War, Israel won the Golan Heights, giving them control of the Sea of Galilee, the Jordan River, and further downstream, Palestinian groundwater.
كلياتها أرض فلسطينية، لكن هاي بنتها إسرائيل مستوطنة هنا. هاي اللي إلها هاي أرض مملوكة إلي أنا والزرع اللي زرعوا فيها أنا. صارت الصب في تقويتهم ومضايقتنا وإضعافنا على أساس ترحيلنا. اللي أي راعي غنم بطول تلا المستعمرة بيودوا له الجيش بطرقوه. هذا بير من آبار جمع مياه الأمطار، لكن للأسف إسرائيل خربطوا في تذبذبات الصوت من القنابل اللي بترميها ومانعيتنا من ترميمها. فمية مكروت اللي من الآبار اللي بحشتها في أراضينا المملوكة مانعيتنا نشرب منها، وآبار الجمع المفحورة على دور أجدادنا مانعيتنا نرممها. هذا بير مياه جوفية بحشته إسرائيل تا يخرج مي بسكي المستوطنات، بحشته في أرض فلسطينية طاب ومملوكة.
everyone enjoy from the flowers, from the water.
How much you pay for agriculture and how much you pay?
For agriculture, around 3 shekel for a cube. Okay? And for home, it's around 8 shekel, 7-8 shekel for a cube.
So we could say you are subsidized.
Yes. They subsidize. Sure, the government wants it. They want to help us to make this product for send it for all the world. And the government anyway, the government gets some money from my flowers too, you know. So and all the world enjoy my flowers, okay, and enjoy from my water. Yeah. That's the system. This is going tomorrow by night to Holland market.
Flowers from the Royi kibbutz never lack water, but Abu Saker and his family can wait as long as 2 weeks for a water delivery.
احنا بندفع حق كوب المية يصلنا هان 27 شيكل، بينما المواطن الإسرائيلي في المستعمرات بدفع 7 شيكل.
Okay, we need Abu Saker to drink. We went to the civil administration. We went through all these 13 departments. Get us the construction permit. We said this is the Joint Water Committee approval. Okay, just get us the construction permit. I said no. This is the shooting area. Shooting what? This is where the army getting trained. I said there is no place now left for your army to train except in Abu Saker lands.
It's true that they need in area C, they need the permission. Unfortunately, they are under occupation there. I mean, I can't say that they are not in their independent state there. You can explain it this way or the other, but this is the fact. I mean, nobody can deny the fact that they are under occupation. And they need the license, but this kind of license is also according to the Oslo. But on the other time, I can tell you that if we dig now, and doesn't matter where, if we dig now extra wells, there's no extra water.
In Israel, we're trying to have 24/7 water for domestic purposes. We're trying to have a large agricultural industry. But we're also trying to sell our food to Europe, to Asia. Well, we can't have everything. Even though some 60% of Israel's water resources go to agriculture, only 2% of our GDP comes from agriculture. So there's a lack of economic sense, and there's certainly a total lack of environmental sense. Oh, this is great. Herman, have a look. Have a look. Have a look at the pipes. Have a look at how this drip irrigation works. This is really sophisticated technology. These pipes carry water, but they don't just water all of the ground. They only water the area directly around the roots. And they do that by having little holes in the pipeline that emits the water in a very specific location. This is Israeli technology. In fact, even the amount of water released in the pipe is computerized. It also includes, the nutrients that the banana plant requires. Above our head, we can see netting. There's 40-degree heat here in the summer, and therefore the growing of the produce such as bananas, tropical fruits in the middle of the desert continues to make no sense. Efficiency is absolutely there, but sustainability is completely missing, because the notion of growing tropical fruits in the middle of the desert is nonsensical.
Millions of years ago, the Mediterranean, the Dead Sea, and the Red Sea were all one body of water. Shifting tectonic plates caused successive movements in the Earth's crust. This led to the isolation of the Dead Sea. It became an enclosed body of water, 400 meters below sea level. Today, the Dead Sea is divided in two, but this time as a result of human intervention. To the north, we find the real Dead Sea. In the south, the potash companies have artificially created a southern basin. On the Jordanian side is the Arab Potash Company, and on the Israeli side, we find the Dead Sea Works. The Canadian Potash Company of Saskatchewan is a shareholder in both. Between them, these two companies share one of the most profitable mines in the world, as well as a 185 square meter pool.
פה זה את בריכות האידוי שלנו, שזה יצרן האנרגיה הסולארית, אני חושב, הכי גדול בעולם. אנחנו מייצרים פה גם אשלג וגם ברום וגם מגנזיום, הכל מהמים של ים המלח, שזה ים שהוא מאוד עשיר במינרלים, ופה אנחנו מנצלים את המינרלים האלה. סויה, אוכל, בשר, אתה צריך לדשן את האדמה כדי לייצר את זה. מה שאנחנו מייצרים פה זה את האשלג. האשלג הוא חלק מהמרכיבים של המזון. דברים האחרים שלנו זה ברום, למשל שמשמש כמעכב בעירה, יש לנו פה את מפעל הברום הכי גדול בעולם, ומגנזיום, שזאת מתכת קלה, המתכת הקונסטרוקטיבית הכי קלה שיש בעולם. היא טובה גם כדי להוריד את המשקל של המכוניות, גם כדי להפחית את הזיהום שמכוניות עושות, ויש לנו גם כן פה את אחד המפעלים הגדולים בעולם למגנזיום מתכתי.
The Arab Potash Company in Jordan and the Israeli Potash Company, both of them are responsible for this. 40% of the declination of the Dead Sea is because of the water that is consumed by those two companies. We acknowledge here in Jordan, and we're grateful for their contribution to the development, economic development in Jordan, because they hire Jordanian, they pay taxes, but this is not enough. They are using water, and because of using a huge amount of water, according to the study, they use up to 200 million. It is not a small quantity of water.
שיטת הייצור שלנו גורמת לזה שאנחנו לוקחים מים מהאגן הצפוני ומעבירים לאגן הדרומי. האגן הדרומי שאתם רואים פה היה פעם ים. אבל בגלל שים המלח, החלק הצפוני שלו ירד, החלק הדרומי, מה שאתם רואים פה, היה אמור להתייבש. מה שאנחנו עושים, אנחנו מביאים מים מהאגן הצפוני אל האגן הדרומי, ובזה אנחנו למעשה מעבירים חיים לאגן הדרומי, שלכו פה, מלבד התעשייה שאתם רואים פה, גם כל בתי המלון באזור נמצאים. בזה שאנחנו מעבירים את המים האלה, זה מאפשר את הקיום של הבריכות האלה, זה מאפשר את הקיום של הים, זה מאפשר את הקיום של התיירות, ובזה אנחנו למעשה מביאים חיים פה לאזור. אנחנו מביאים פה את התיירות, פרנסה, את כל הדברים היפים שאתם רואים פה.
What most tourists enjoying the Dead Sea probably don't realize is that they are in fact bathing in a 1 square kilometer reservoir. In the language of engineers, they are floating in evaporation pool number 5, created by the chemical plants of the Dead Sea. The waters of the Dead Sea are known for their curative benefits. Here, the hotels look like 4-star clinics where the guests walk around in shorts or bikinis.
Voilà, ces patients sont des patients tout à fait corrects, ils sont à l'ombre. Hello. Comment va?
Il me semble que c'est bon. Oui. Déjà hier, il y avait, je me sentais presque guéri, oui. Mais ça revient.
Très bien. Eh ben,
il faut que je fasse mes 4 semaines.
On va attendre les 4 semaines. Bonne continuation.
Merci. Merci.
Alors, si on prend une poignée de sel de la mer Morte, on va se rendre compte que le sel le plus abondant, c'est le chlorure de magnésium. Ces sels ont une particularité, ils vont pénétrer dans l'épiderme et dans le derme et ils vont provoquer un effet modérateur de la prolifération des cellules de psoriasis ou encore une atténuation de l'inflammation des cellules de la peau. Cette mer Morte est vraiment une mine de santé.
Well, actually, as a tourist, I've never been here. We're banned even by a Israeli cabinet decision. They banned for the Palestinians to swim in the Dead Sea. So I don't used to come here. This water is ours. 1/3 of this water is ours. The other third is for Israel and half of it to Jordan. This is not only water. This is also a natural source. This is the richest body on earth. This is a touristic area because we are in the lowest point of earth, on the earth. As Everest, the highest point, we are at the lowest point on earth. This is a touristic area. We cannot benefit from until now. This is the richest body in terms of metals, iodine, brome, potash, zinc, all metals, this is the richest body on earth. We're banned to utilize. We're banned to make investment. We're banned to build a touristic city like the Jordanian side, where hotels, Kempinski and Movenpick and Marriott. We would like to do like other people, just doing our Kempinski here, doing our Marriott, doing whatever hotels here. It's just to bring tourists. It's just to create jobs. It's just to make good economy.
The drastic decline of the Dead Sea has forced the players in the region to look at a variety of solutions for this water crisis. At one point, there was a proposal to bring in glaciers from the North Pole, a project deemed unrealistic and rather inefficient. What about building a 1,000-kilometer canal from Turkey via Syria? But that was impossible as Syria does not recognize the State of Israel. An Israeli project proposed constructing 2 canals, 80 kilometers and 100 kilometers each, from the Mediterranean Sea to the Dead Sea. Technically interesting, but it was unacceptable to the Arab neighbors as it would give too much control over water to Israel. And now the World Bank is studying a Jordanian project, a canal linking the Red Sea to the Dead Sea. Spanning over 200 kilometers, the Red Dead Canal would cost upwards of $10 billion. But in order for this to work, this project would require the agreement of all 3 riparian nations, the Israelis, Jordanians, and Palestinians.
As part of a vision to transform the Arava into a valley of peace, a plan has been prepared to create a canal of the seas. The plan includes the building of a canal spanning a distance of 166 kilometers from the Red Sea to the Dead Sea, traveling along the current border between Israel, Jordan, and the Palestinians.
The objective of this project is to supply more water, because we in the Middle East suffer from shortage of water, like I said. It's in everywhere, different level, but still everybody suffer from shortage of water and they need more water. Desalination is the future of this area.
In addition, desalination and power plants will be built, all based on modern, environmentally friendly technologies. The Canal of the Seas will allow for the production and transport of 1 billion cubic meters of desalinated water per year to the area for use by the community, for agriculture, and for manufacturing and development. The Valley of Peace project will bring unequivocal change to the entire region. The barren desert will flourish and the arid lands will bloom with greenery on both sides of the border.
The idea is to use seawater from the Red Sea to produce both fresh water and to replenish the Dead Sea. The potash companies are not convinced.
הרעיון הוא רעיון יפה, אבל יש איתו מספר סיכונים. הסיכונים זה בעצם הערבוב של המים, זה מים משני סוגים. מי ים סוף זה כמו ים אוקיינוס, ים המלח זה הרכב אחר לגמרי, זה פי 10 מינרלים שיש בו. הערבוב בין שני סוגי המים יכול ליצור בעיות. יכול להיווצר גבס, כי ים סוף עשיר בסולפטים וים המלח עשיר בקלציום. יכולים להיווצר עצות, יכולים להיות גם השפעות שהשכבה של המים העליונה בים המלח תהפוך להיות מים קלים מים סוף, וזה יכול ליצור פה שינוי אקלימי.
In each pool we had different combinations of Red Sea with Dead Sea, of Dead Sea with desalinated water, and see whether algae and gypsum had an effect one on the other. There are still a lot of unknowns that remain. So if we want to further a project of such incredibly big, I mean, it's big in any sense you can think of. It's big in the sense of its effects. It's big in the sense of what it requires to be done infrastructurally and between the countries. And you've got to try and understand how you're doing it with making the right assessments in order to make the unknowns as little as possible.
It's very nice that for once environmentalists and the Dead Sea Works are together in one issue against the Red Dead Canal. But it's for different reasons. Because for the Dead Sea Works, they profit from the death of the Dead Sea, from that the Dead Sea is deteriorating. They are making more profits. If the Red Sea is bringing in water which will cover the Dead Sea, it will float on top of the Dead Sea water. The Dead Sea Works will have to work much harder to get to their minerals.
The drying up of the Dead Sea does not prevent the potash companies from accessing the highly concentrated reserves of sediment, which are 4 kilometers down. In fact, it's making it easier. This can only reassure their investors. Despite opposition from ecologists, industry, and others in the region, the experts seem to agree. They are recommending a combination of the Jordanian and Israeli projects. The Jordanian venture could supply fresh water to southern Jordan and Israel using treated water from the Red Sea. In exchange, the Israelis would supply the center of Israel, Palestine, and northern Jordan from the Mediterranean. The remaining salt water would feed the Dead Sea. But even the best and most logical solutions cannot ignore the political reality in the region.
We have been criticized hugely. People said, you, Minister Attili, how come you cooperate while you cannot reach to the Dead Sea? You are snaking, as we did just to get to the Dead Sea. How come you cooperate and you are sitting with the Israeli and the Jordanian as if you can't decide in this water?
I understand the Palestinian, why they start negotiating on water with the water rights. I understand it. I can understand Abu Allah and he claims, he said this way, look, even when we have the Palestinian state, it will be kind of crippled. We don't have full responsibility on the air or on many things. We will not have a real army. So we will not be a real state. It will be kind of so-so. So the water rights are symbol of independence. And I say that's okay. But this has nothing to do with solving the water problem. This will not add 1 liter to any person. And I told him I would start it. Let's start first with checking that each of our citizens gets its equitable amount of water.
And we came to the table and said, okay, we will put our hand in your hand, but we would love to put our hand as equal partner, not between an occupied and occupier, because you never see this on the earth. You never see the people who's occupied is willing to cooperate. But in our aspiration to get our state, to get liberated, we are doing all of this in order to restore our rightful share in the Jordan River, as well as in the Dead Sea, not only the water, but also the resources and all aspects, the religious aspect, the touristic aspect, everything. We would like to restore it. And we would like to build our state to live in peace and prosperity with its neighbor, Jordan, as well as Israel.
While the Israelis don't really need this new source of water, a project involving cooperation with their Arab neighbors would be welcome. For the Jordanians, this immense infusion of water could bring an end to their daily problems with their water supply. For the Palestinians, this project could become a political weapon in their battle to obtain their rights and independence. Will the Palestinians end up signing this accord against their will? Will they succeed in asserting their rights to the riches of the Dead Sea?
The Dead Sea is a wake-up call. It's the wake-up call of the region to change the way we think about water, we treat water, to strike a balance between nature, our peoples, and our environment. That's how we'll save the Dead Sea.
Time is running out. Either we find a way to collectively repair the damage that has been done, or the Dead Sea will continue to die. The projects to restore the Dead Sea may lead to supplying enough water to quench the thirst of the whole region. But can water alone bring about the birth of real peace?